cash grabs, time crunches, inauthentic sequels, games that all tried their hardest to take the title World's Worst Game. It's not easy to be the worst, and while some lucked into it throughout history, it's clear that the battle was hard fought all throughout the years. But only one could truly stand on top. Only one could be the worst, rated by reviewers and fans alike. Only one could ever hold the title World's Worst Game. This is the world record history of the world's worst video game. The earliest runs of the world's worst game are lost to time. Although there are some sporadic review sites, the rules were undefined and the runners did not enthusiastically attempt the category. While there were games earlier that held the unofficial record of world's worst game, the community around the record was still in its prime, and it took some time before anyone could get together and actually start recording or posting runs to a leaderboard. As a result, we're only going to look at runs posted after 1996. The leaderboard only started recording runs in 1996, so we can speculate on what the worst game was back before then, but the community was divided on the rules for the run, particularly what made a game good or bad. One other major reason for the lack of posting runs was, most importantly, back before 1996, nobody really asked the question, what was the worst video game ever? In 1996, however, the culture started to take shape and the community got together to agree on the rules for this category. After the rules were agreed upon, the leaderboard instantly started to take shape. The rules agreed upon were simple. The lowest average critic score across all categories wins. It also needed to run on the console that it released on, and it needed to have at least 7 reviews. Though some runs posted were disputed early on, the community decided to not include any runs that had 6 or fewer ratings on their attempt. This would prevent an obvious abuse of the system where someone could get one grouchy critic to tank their score and then hide the game from subsequent other critics. Although the community was tight and at this point in 1996 ran on trust, they had the foresight to include these rules so that future runners and record holders wouldn't be disenfranchised by dishonest bug abusers. So with the rules set and the stage set, let's go back to 1996 and look at the first entry on the leaderboard. On February 29th, 1996, Pulse Entertainment posted their first and only entry to the leaderboard with Bad Mojo. While Bad Mojo wasn't created for this category, the run was posted to the leaderboard, and because of the infancy of the category, it took the record. Pulse Entertainment seemed rather surprised that they got the title, as they didn't really intend to get this record, and they made no further attempts after Bad Mojo to get the bottom spot. To be fair, for that time, Bad Mojo probably did deserve this spot, despite them not trying for it. The attempt was really weird, and quite honestly, pretty off-putting. It was actually pretty creative at the same time. As a result, it got a score of 74 on the leaderboard. In Bad Mojo, you play as a roach in a point-and-click PC adventure game. It's dirty, it's strange, the sound design is really intense, but it does have its own unique quirks and uniqueness to it. Of all the games mentioned in this world record history, this game truly was the best out of all of them, and as a result, it's no wonder that it didn't hold the record for that long. A 74 is a terrible score by today's standards, but back then, it was the only run posted that could even compete. Bad Mojo wouldn't hold this title for too long, however, as a new challenger was quickly approaching, Merit Studios. Merit Studios was the first developer to really try and optimize the run. While there weren't any skips known at the time, they did their best to get the lowest score possible with all the currently known methods, and on September 1st, 1996, they posted this run. Harvester topped the leaderboard with a 53. Harvester was a terrible game, but it ran quite well on the system. While they certainly took some inspiration from Bad Mojo's run, optimizing the horror and disgust aspects of the game in order to encourage developers to give a terrible score as much as possible, they also added their own flavor by creating some extremely easy puzzles that did not provide any challenge, further reducing their score. Additionally, they spent time on the story and ensured that the emotions that the player invested into the story would be completely in vain, as all the reviewers considered the ending quite unsatisfying. Harvesters spent most of their time trying to optimize some abuses regarding the disgust category, which did work for the time. And to this day, there have not been any successful records that have further solely abused the game's disgust category to take the record. While Bad Mojo just stumbled upon the record initially, Harvester really trailblazed and pushed hard for their 53, and they earned the bottom spot on the leaderboard. In the coming years, the category saw little improvements, but nothing good enough to take the top spot from Harvester. Ripcord Games released Postal on September 30th, 1997, and got a score of 56, only 3 points behind Harvester's 53. 8 months later, Fox Interactive posted a submission that also scored a 56 with the X-Files game. When it was all said and done, however, Harvester maintained its record with a 53 for an impressive 4 years. The sub-50 was so close, and people could feel it coming. On April 3rd, a new run was posted that topped the leaderboards. 3DO posted their entry with Army Men World War. 3DO managed to just miss the sub-50 and land right on the 50 with this entry. This run optimized some critical parts that Harvester was missing, as well as taking advantage of some of the newer optimizations that weren't available to the previous entries, in particular, title fatigue. People don't want to play the same game over and over. And releasing an Army Man game in the early 2000s was like influencers today releasing a food brand. It's quite overdone. 3DO took advantage of this perfectly, as nearly all the reviews mentioned something about the game being a tired trope. Though 3DO's run was impressive, it still didn't get the sub-50 that everyone was anticipating. Nobody was prepared for what was next. The sub-50 was closer than ever, and that's when a true revolutionary stepped into the scene. A challenger would revolutionize the way that the category would be run forever. Their name, Midway. Midway saw their opportunity and was crafting something even more insane than anyone could ever imagine at the time. Midway didn't just get the sub-50, not even a sub-45, or even a sub-40. On June 30th, 2000, Midway did this. A 28. Mortal Kombat Special Forces was truly terrible. A run like this, a 28, was unheard of at the time. Midway had revolutionized the way that this category would be run forever. Skipping that many milestones to submit such a dominating run has only happened a few times ever in these kinds of documentary videos, maybe only once. Midway had combined many different aspects of the runs that had preceded them. They knew how to be ugly without gaining points for creativity. They knew how to be repetitive and rote without being calming and relaxing. And most importantly, they took a franchise that was overwhelmingly beloved and did some real disservice to it. Fans and critics alike absolutely hated this game, and as a result, it earned its spot on the bottom of the leaderboard. Although Midway had trailblazed their way to such a low score, they didn't keep their record for long. Midway had brought with them a revolution, games that were really bad. Midway would forever leave their mark on the leaderboard with this historical run, no matter how quickly it was beaten or how many times it was beaten. I really can't express just how inspirational this run was for the community at the time. It lit a fire in people that really hasn't been matched since. Through all the excitement, Acclaim was the first opportunist. They saw the impressive score that Midway had gotten, and after such a terrible performance, they got started on their own. And just 5 months later, on November 20th, 2000, Acclaim released HBO Boxing, scoring a record-breaking 26, barely undercutting Midway and taking the record. HBO Boxing used nearly all of the same strategies that Midway used. It's unclear exactly what made them stand out and squeeze out those extra 2 points, but nonetheless, they took the record and stood atop the leaderboard for the time being. What was clear about this run, though, was the renaissance was real. Midway had paved the way, and other challengers were going to take their shot at the bottom spot. Acclaim announced their ability with their 26, and the next year, 2 more entries tied Acclaim's record. Take-Two Interactive got a 26 with Kiss Pinball in April of 2001, and Infogames tied the 26 with Survivor in November of the same year. But Midway wasn't about to let their record go that easily. they weren't ready to go down without a fight. And on June 27th, 2002, just 2 years after their legendary 28, Midway released Gravity Games Bike, Street, Vert, Dirt, and put themselves back on the bottom of the leaderboard with an astounding 24. This record was fantastic and would last for over an entire year, as only one other contender would come close in January of 2003, and they were only able to tie Midway's 24. In July of 2003, however, one of the gaming greats entered the scene to make their permanent mark on the leaderboard: Ubisoft. Ubisoft released Charlie's Angels for the GameCube, a game that, for its time, just did not do very well. Repetitive, boring, no variation in the characters that you play, and the controls are just rough. Regardless of its actual playability, it was enough to secure the bottom spot on the leaderboard with a 23. At this point, the category began to slow down a little bit. Midway had taken a break from the scene, and while there were many contenders posting records to the leaderboard, none of them came close to breaking the record. That was until Majesco came onto the scene and delivered a surprise 22 with their entry of Drake of the 99 Dragons. Just barely edging Ubisoft out, they managed to take the bottom spot. Now, enthusiasm for this category was still dwindling, and nobody could imagine a game going any lower than a 22 at this point. And as a result, the category actually went dormant for a little while. In the years following Majesco's 22, there were many entries, but all entries were just using previous strategies and trying to optimize the previous routes that had previously been ran. While there were many close calls, there wasn't any real innovation in the scene at this point. Konami got a run that came out to a 30 in 2005, Tri-Synergy got a 24 in 2006, and Groove Games got a 26 a few days after Tri-Synergy's 24. All respectable attempts at the record, but nobody could imagine topping Majesco's masterful 22. It wasn't all the way until 2007, 4 years after Majesco's 22, when a new challenger came onto the scene: Destination Software. Seeing the record so close to the sub-20 inspired him, and he wanted to push it even further than it could be. But how could someone optimize an already optimized run? His next attempt would be his best. He found the game Deal or No Deal, a mediocre game show that saw mild success in the early 2000s. The game show was at least mildly interesting when the stakes were real. However, playing the game by yourself with no stakes at all is literally the equivalent of just trying to guess a random number. As a result, Destination Software thought, there's no way this game could actually be fun to play. It must be a breakthrough. And breakthrough it did. Deal or No Deal released for the Nintendo DS on July 23, 2007, scoring a shocking 20. Before this, everyone thought that the 22 was the lowest possible score, but Destination Software proved everyone wrong. This new entry reignited the race. If Destination Software could get a 20, then the sub-20 must be real, right? Just 3 months later, a newcomer, Backbone Entertainment, was about to shock the world with what they were about to do. 2007 was the height of Xbox Live games. Not only could people download games from the comfort of their own homes, but they didn't even need to leave their house in order to buy one. This allowed ambitious developers to offer their games in new ways and make it easier for players to get their hands on the latest and greatest games. This also opened the door for Backbone to shock the world by releasing Yaris for free in the Xbox Live marketplace. Yaris was the absolute pinnacle of a terrible game, and it's hard to imagine anything besting the absolute perfection that is Yaris. In Yaris, you drive around as a Toyota Yaris with a gun strapped to the hood. It has everything: crashes, horrible graphics, a weird ad cutscene every few minutes. It topped the leaderboards on October 10th, 2007 with a 17, smashing the sub-20 barrier. Yaris didn't break these records without controversy. First of all, it was a free game released to the Xbox Live marketplace, not something that anyone in 1996, when the rules were invented, could ever even fathom. As a result, the community was divided on whether or not to include this run to the leaderboards. Additionally, the game was delisted from the Xbox Live marketplace a year after its release in November 2008. After a lot of deliberation, the community decided to not split the leaderboard and let Yaris's record stand, mostly because, in the new age of these games, truly nothing else was in its league in terms of how terrible it really was. Even though the community was split at the introduction of this record, it stands today as one of the most impressive and respected records on the leaderboard today. After Yaris crushed the sub 20, the community went into another dormant state. Yaris had brought the record so low that nobody could really imagine ever bringing it lower. Yaris' 17 stands as the world's worst game on top of the leaderboard to this day. Is what I would say if I was a liar. I have yet to introduce to you one final challenger, one more entry that is so awful that it may never be beaten ever. After Yaris stood on top of the leaderboards for an impressive 6 years, in 2012, D3 Publisher had one final word that they wanted to get in, and that word was Family Party, 30 Great Games, Obstacle Arcade. Oh man, is this game just utter trash. This game puts all of the other records to shame and it makes them look as if they weren't even trying. Family Party got a shocking, jaw-dropping 11 on the leaderboard, and they deserve this spot more than any other game that has ever posted an entry on the leaderboard. And this is where the leaderboard stands today. This record is impressive, but not unbeatable. The category is still active and there are hundreds of submissions every year. With enough time and more attempts, we may just see sub 10. Hey, if you like this video, I have one more video for you about the real meaning behind an IGN 5 and why Brothership got such a bad rating. Go ahead and check it out, it's on your screen right now. I also didn't really have a chance to plug my channel, so if you made it this far and you like this, please don't forget to subscribe. I also have a Patreon too, it's in the description, go ahead and check it out if you'd like to. This was the world record history of the world's worst game. I'll see you next Sunday.